The generic Khorne Lord is a lord that I had overlooked in terms of his actual stats. He is visually certainly one of the coolest characters for Chaos in the game, in my opinion, with his dual axes. Today he's on his Juggernaut, and he's going to be taken by Pokey in this Domination game. And specifically, the thing that I had missed about him is this little item right here, the Axe of Khorne, which is essentially like a little mini Scarbrand effect, right? Charges up his weapon strength with the amount of kills that he gets. It starts out for at 2% intensity for whatever reason. He's also got this icon of Endless War, or Vigor Refresh on himself when he's in melee. Of course, being that he is a Khorne dude, he's also got the Norskin Rage passive for extra physical resistance, fight or die. Not a ton of HP, but still very strong offensive stats. He's backing it up with the Skull Cannon here. He's got a bunch of Warriors of Khorne here and a Chosen of Khorne, so a very heavy shielded force here, looking to resist some of the armor-piercing missiles of the Dark Elves that he's facing. Some Furies of Khorne here as well. We've got Malus in the starting army, Bleak Swords, and a single Dread Spear with 4 Dark Shards. Sorceress of Shadows, then on the low ground, couple of Shades with Great Swords, and the Karens of Cain. Not Cairns, Karens, like, let me see your manager, please. Anyway, let's look at the reserve armies. 4 Khorne's reserves. He's got 1 Minotaurs with Grey Weapons, the Brutes of the Hound, Regiment of Renown Norskin Berserkers, 2 Khorne Forsaken, 3 Fleshhounds, 2 Khorne Horsemen, a Fury, and a single Khorne Marauder. For the Dark Elves, he's got a Hydra in reserve, the Regiment of Renown Dread Knights, the Knights of the Ebon Claw, the Regiment of Renown Repeater Crossbow Dark Riders, which is the Raven's Heralds, the Arawar Crows of Cain, just the Harpies, obviously, Reaper Bolt Thrower, 2 Dark Riders with Repeater Crossbows, 2 Dark Riders with Shields, and 2 Dread Spears. And now we're back. The Shades are going to reveal themselves, firing at the Furies. They don't really need to worry too much about the Furies coming to engage them in melee, though. With that high anti-infantry damage, the Furies can fight back effectively. They'll take damage from Furies, certainly, but they will absolutely butcher them. Speaking of butchery, we're going to get the Lord of Khorne deploying here, potentially looking to go murder some Shades, given, again, their high melee attack and armor-piercing weapon damage in a surround. They are going to be able to get some pretty consistent hits against him. Likewise, he'll definitely take some armor-piercing damage on the approach here. A little bit of missile resistance to help resist that. But, yeah, the Karens, for whatever reason, decide to dive the Skull Cannon. Definitely a little bit of a mistake there, as Malus's force is just kind of biding its time over here. But the Shades going to get engaged by the Khorne Lord, and he is going to start to take significant armor-piercing damage in a surround like this, although he will charge up his weapon strength ever so slightly as he starts to get kills. Yeah, 3 kills is 6% weapon strength there. 6% intensity, which is 2% weapon strength, can only go up to 25% intensity, so it's nowhere near the ceiling that Scarbrand has, but considering how cheap that Khorne Lord is in comparison, can potentially be quite strong. We'll see. The idea here, I think, is just going to be to try and charge up that weapon strength as much as possible before moving into fight Malus in the late game. One of the best ways of dealing with Malus is to just crush him before he can get the transform off, and that may be what he's attempting to do here. Skull Cannon also getting a little bit of pressure on Malus. Skull Cannon has pretty decent single target damage, kind of single entity type weapon strength. 352 armor-piercing weapon damage certainly is more damage than a lot of single entities might have with their melee attack. Furies pressuring here. Looks like the Raven's Heralds, Regiment of Renown, came out play, immediately getting counteracted by the Khorne Furies very cost-effectively. These other Khorne Furies could swoop in too, go after these Bolt Fiends, and a nice kind of outmaneuver of that infantry front line brings in the Fleshhounds off of Vanguard to strike at these unprotected bow units. The Khorne Lord ends up taking a ton of damage here, but at the same time is able to rack up a few kills there. 44 kills, up to 700 plus weapon strength, which is just insane considering how cheap he is, you know, all the other stuff going on in terms of being a lord and everything else. That is an insane amount of weapon strength. I mean, closing in on like Dread Saurian level weapon strength there. Obviously not the same HP profile, but the Dark Elves are going to respond with some Dark Riders here. Nice charge bonus on them. Should be able to shut down those Fleshhounds in a relative hurry. although the Bolt Fiends and the other Dark Shards are being scattered to the four winds. Dark Elves are able to move up, secure this objective, and now Malus is coming back over. The Karens haven't survived until now, somehow. Are going to swoop down and get that Skull Cannon once again, but really all they're doing at this point is just feeding it more ammunition, which is obviously going to be potentially problematic. The Khorne Lord also significantly over-chasing here on those Greatswords who are shattered, the Shade Greatswords even. But because the mobile units of Khorne are doing a good job swarming, the Dark Elves kind of light units here, the Dark Riders initially getting a good engagement, but the Khorne Furies, great response there. Malus is still an absolute force of nature, though. Pops his blood price and is just absolutely wrecking those Flesh Hounds, able to bail out some of those Bolt Fiends. And in terms of capture, I mean, obviously Shades, the Great Swords come back. They're going to start to capture this objective a little bit here. A beautiful Pit of Shades on those blobbed up Khorne Warriors. And the Chosen even mostly getting missed by that, but still taking a tiny bit of damage from it. Despite the spell resistance there, they're still going to get hit pretty hard by that Pit of Shades. Generate some nice value, and then Malus just immediately charging into the Chosen. I mean, Chosen of Khorne, certainly decent defense, but Malus will be able to do some damage to him. It's no question about that, but oh yeah, here comes the Khorne Lord out in the distance. You can see him barely over the heads of his fellow warriors there, galloping on over. Not to mention the other Khorne bros are blobbing in, setting up another really nice Pit of Shades here. As soon as that's off of cooldown, no doubt we will see that to try and bust that blob up, but the cooldown is still ongoing. Meanwhile, we've got some Dread Knights in the back, able to finally finish off the Furies there. Bolt Throwers attempting to be summoned here to try and generate some battlefield control, start to maybe deal some damage to these light units, but with no Pit of Shades yet forthcoming. Oh no, there it is. I was going to say, it's got to be coming in sometime, but the Khorne Lord's charging in. Oh yeah, I just want to soak up some cinematics here for just a moment, and then we'll take a look at the health bars and stats and such, but the Khorne Lord here, if we take a look, already Malus has got some huge hits. You know, smashed on him, and another huge hit there takes him down below half HP. Massive weapon strength from the Khorne Lord, and the fact that he's got great infantry support. Huge attack, too, right now, up to 80 attack. Easily enough to get successive hits, and Malus just gets legit murdered in like 20 seconds. Yeah, that's very impressive, actually. Rarely have I seen Malus die that fast, and yeah, for the Khorne Lord, again, we'll look at his cost after the fact, and keep in mind he is reasonably fragile as well, but I just thought that was absolutely incredible. I've been sitting on this replay for a while trying to find the right time to slot it in for you guys, and I really wanted to show it because of that specific engagement right there. And I mean, at this point, yeah, Khorne's like 5,000 ahead on army damage value. The poor sorceress is on foot, so she's going to take even more damage due to the anti-infantry bonus if the Khorne Lord will stop messing around and playing with his food there. But the Dark Elf Cavalry going to attempt to deploy, and while Dark Elves technically have a capture advantage right now, that huge army value disproportionate advantage for Khorne, I mean, literally 5,000 damage value ahead. Pit of Shades is not going to save you in that circumstance. Khorne should take home the victory, so we'll just soak up some more cinematic action, maybe drop a little fast forward later on so we can get to the end. But yeah, that Khorne, that Chaos Lord of Khorne is pretty potent, and I've used him a little bit in the past. Sometimes it seemed like he didn't pay for himself, or he just died very easily without doing very much. I do think like slaughtering some low-tier infantry or skirmishers with him initially in the early phase of the battle is a great way, and then kind of engaging with high-value targets later on. As long as you don't take too much damage in that initial process, I do think that's a pretty smart implementation of his ability set. And again, kind of utilization like a mini Scarbrand almost. Obviously not nearly as threatening or expensive as Scarbrand, so you can go a little bit wider around him. But it's very interesting, and against a faction with a lot of armor-piercing missiles, perhaps most importantly, he's a much smaller target than somebody like Scarbrand, right? So, yeah, at this point, the Dark Elf Cavalry is trying to respond. Khorne able to come through and start to get some captures. Brutes of the Hound coming out right now. These other Khorne units kind of filtering onto this objective, so it's going to be tough going for the Dark Elves. Fleshhounds chasing away the Dread Knights here. Those are the ROR Dread Knights? Yeah, Knights of the Ebon Claw getting chased away quite easily. And the Karens of Cain actually trading reasonably well. It's funny. Like Blood Red Harpies against Blood Red Furies. Absolutely amazing. Hard to tell what's going on, but certainly creatures are dropping from the sky on both sides. And looks like we've got some shades coming out once more. But we'll fast forward through this kind of end game here a little bit as, yep, there we go. I was going to say, I think the Dark Elf player throws in the towel. It's just too much of a damage value lead to come back from. And very impressive performance. Almost 3,000 damage value. 2725, 10,000 total damage dealt for the Lord of Khorne. And then the Skull Cannon also pays for itself, which makes me quite happy. Furies are just generally an awesome unit in Domination against most factions, but certainly against squishy elves like the Dark Elves. The rest of the build really didn't get used much. I mean, Fleshhounds came out, contributed a little bit. Same for the Marauder Horsemen. Really see the Minotaurs, though. Brutes of the Hound barely got involved. On the Dark Elf side, we would expect pretty good value from Pit of Shades, and that is the truth, but most other units are going to struggle to pay for themselves. One of the Shades with Greatswords actually did a pretty good job, and I actually don't hate Shades Greatswords here. Maybe I just go with like 5 as my starting army. I don't know. I'd have to kind of sit and think about it a little bit, but the rest of the build here, Dread Knights definitely struggled, getting a little bit outnumbered. I do like the pick of the Dark Riders as well, but rank 9 Dark Riders? Yeah, strange one for sure. Anyway, let's go ahead and just take a look at the cost of this Khorne Lord here, and just kind of think a little bit about your Lord options for Khorne, especially him in comparison to Skarbrand, right? So 1,800 base cost, putting him on the Juggernaut puts him all the way up to 2,300, which is actually not crazy cheap. I didn't catch there if he had the Paragon of Courage. You know, maybe worth having. You could maybe leave that off, but I think that's part of what was juicing his melee attack all the way up to 80, but I mean, even still at this high price point, you compare him to somebody like a Skarbrand, and he's already looking relatively cheap in comparison. That being said, I mean, if you were to really optimize Skarbrand's kit, he's not that much more expensive, but he is much bigger of a target. And HP-wise, I mean, this guy goes up to, what, 5865, so there's a significant difference in HP there, but you can still get his weapon strength up quite high, and in general, yeah, it's just an interesting choice. I mean, the Chariot also, I haven't tried much, I'll be honest, but in certain matchups, this could be a pretty decent option, potentially. It is also worth noting that the Exalted Hero of Khorne has the Potion of Toughness, as well as Banner of Rage, so while he can't juice up his weapon strength in the same way, he can heal himself, which is pretty nice, but yeah, Lord of Khorne definitely was surprised at his performance there, and maybe he deserves another look in a handful of matchups, but let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Hopefully you enjoyed that. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.